Good evening and welcome to Wednesday's Midlands Today from the BBC. Tonight, food or rent? That's a stark choice charities say the poorest in our region will have to make because of government cuts to housing benefit. They also warn there'll be a reduction in the number of rental homes available and an increase in homelessness.
But the government disputes that, saying the changes will stop rents spiralling out of control. And they say they're offering a package of help to those in greatest need to cushion them as the new limits are introduced this week. Ben Godfrey reports.
James Ashton is 33 and unemployed. He's had crisis loans and can only afford his £105 weekly rent because it's paid in full through housing benefits. But the government's capping his allowance and those of the growing number of people attending this drop-in centre in Birmingham.
It would mean another bill for me to pay, which would actually cut down on my food bill. Actually made me quite angry that we've got to pay. It feels like we're paying for the government's bills.
There's concern that thousands of homes will become out of reach, especially as single people under 35 will now get lower housing benefits.
If you're currently renting a two-bedroom property in Birmingham, for example, at £125 a week and housing benefit is covering all of that rent, housing benefit will reduce to around about £110, £115 a week, and therefore the tenant will need to find the difference.
New figures from the Chartered Institute of Housing suggest that in Birmingham, more than 14,000 homes are now effectively unaffordable to those claiming housing benefits. In Coventry, the figure is more than 5,000. And out of the big cities in a place like Shropshire, the number is close to 4,000 homes. The Seafer Fireside charity in Birmingham is now expecting a rise in the city's homeless.
We've already seen people coming through now. There's an example of a young guy that turned up yesterday that he'd lost his job, so hence he's lost his accommodation. So we're trying desperately to keep him out of the homeless system.
The government says the new limits will stop rents from spiralling. Housing benefits cost taxpayers some £20 billion a year. Some claimants, we're told, do receive up to £400 a week.
It's not acceptable that we have a situation where there are people on average earnings in Britain who cannot afford to live in the same size of accommodation as people on housing benefit. And we need to move the system so it's affordable, that it protects the most vulnerable, but is also fair to the majority of taxpayers.
What do you say to those people who say that these changes being brought in are actually quite fair?
Well, to be honest, those people who actually say it's quite fair, they've probably never actually been in this situation.
James Ashton and others here are seeking advice. No job, no money for extra rent. Their last hope may be banking on a rent reduction from their landlords. Ben Godfrey, BBC Midlands Today, Birmingham.
Well, we did ask Birmingham City Council for their response, but no one was available for comment tonight.
Flood barriers